We'd like to thank Montecito Bank Trust for their generous support in making Scam Squad possible. I'm Patty Teal.
And I'm Deputy District Attorney Vicki Johnson. Scam Squad is up next.
Sound off.
1, 2.
Sound off.
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Scam Squad.
Welcome to Scam Squad. I'm Patty Teal here as usual with Deputy District Attorney Vicki Johnson. How you doing, Vicki?
Very well, Patty.
We have our partners from Montecito Bank Trust here with us today, and I'll let you do the honors.
All right. So Doris Roof from Montecito Bank Trust is with us today. She is the Senior Fraud Specialist. And I understand today, Doris, you're going to tell us about fraud that is associated with the use of Zelle. And maybe for those of us who don't know exactly how Zelle works or what it is, you could start by just explaining how Zelle is supposed to work.
And thank you for inviting me. So Zelle is very similar to Venmo and like PayPal, where you're transferring money from person to person. It's actually called P2P, which stands for person to person. Except Zelle is a product that is used with financial institutions. So you'll see a lot of banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America actually have been using it for quite a few years. But you'll see more and more the Zelle product being introduced. So it's a way of transferring money between what are called tokens, and you can transfer money to a phone number or using the phone number as the identification, or through email or an account. And then you go ahead and set up who you'd like to send money to on a regular basis or once a month, whatever you decide. And so you set that up, and then you can go ahead and go into your online banking, because that's where Zelle is. And then you can go ahead and go into your Zelle account and you can transfer money right away. And it can be instant. You can set it up to be sent in 1 day, 2 days, a few days, or you can set it up via ACH so that you can go ahead and send money that way. So it's an easy way of sending money between parties.
So, for example, Doris, if I wanted to send money through Zelle to, let's say, my utility company, I could choose to use Zelle, and I would need to get the utility company's token, which could either be their phone number or their email account. And then once a month, I could send money to my utility company that way. Is that how it would work? Or?
No, that's more like a bill pay.
Okay.
So what happens is it's more individuals, like a person to person. Okay. So it's between individuals of sending money, just like Venmo, except Zelle is going through the financial institutions.
If I wanted to send money to let's say my tennis instructor, I could do it through Zelle.
Yes, as long as you have their phone number, their email address, then you can go ahead and just send it over to them and they will get the payment.
Okay, I think I've got it. All right. So what's starting to happen? What are you seeing that's fraudulent?
Well, what we're seeing is more and more people are either getting a phone call or a text saying, we noticed that let's use Southern California Edison or an electrical company, and your utility bill for your electricity hasn't been paid and you're way overdue. And, to avoid turning off your electricity in the next couple of hours, we need immediate payment. So the customer will say, how am I going to pay for that? And usually it's always been gift cards or something like that where they've been asking for the money. Now more and more it's becoming, well, you can make a payment through Zelle and we'll get that payment right away. We'll make notation that you've made payment. And that's how they entice the person to go ahead and start falling for the scam. So the customer, of course, gets concerned. They go ahead and say, well, how am I going to do that? I don't have Zelle. And they'll say, well, go ahead into your online banking, because that's where Zelle is housed, and set up a Zelle account. You're going to go ahead and send it to this. Usually it's an email address, and go ahead and set it up to this email address. And then the customer will go ahead and set up the Zelle. And then they'll go ahead and say, okay, how much do I owe you? And they'll go ahead and send the money out, $1,000, $2,000, whatever is instructed. The other way where they have more control and access, especially when you're a little bit older and you're not as computer savvy, and they'll say, well, I'm trying to set up Zelle, but I'm having problems. They'll say, can we go ahead and remote in?
So when you say they, you mean the scammer?
I'm sorry, the scammer. The scammer will ask, can we go ahead and remote in? We'll help you set this up. Customer says yes. They go ahead and remote in.
And when you say remote in, you mean the victim is going to give remote access of their computer to the scammer?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll remote in. They'll start setting up they, being the scammer, will go ahead and set up the Zelle and start transferring money out. And it is instant a majority of the time. And once it's gone, it's gone.
Just to clarify, a company wouldn't ask you to pay through Zelle. It's certainly not a utility company. So that right there is a red flag immediately. That's something only a scammer would do, correct?
Correct. Our processor, who we work with and handling our transactions, they did bring out a communication stating that Zelle is on the increase. And they also gave us a few items of what would never happen with Zelle. Refunds are never issued through Zelle. And that was actually a scam we just received recently that, we want to send you a refund, but we want to send it to you via Zelle. So once again, refunds are not issued through the Zelle.
So let me just ask you a question here. So that would be the scammer saying we owe you money and we want to give you a refund?
Yes.
And why would the scammer do that? Just to get remote access to the victim's computer?
To get that refund, you're going to have to open up a Zelle. Let me help you open up that Zelle account. The financial institution, the bank, will never ask you to send information and send it to them via text.
Okay.
So that was one of the items. And then don't provide account numbers or personal information by email or text. Once again, they're trying to get more information so they can gain access. Don't trust caller ID. And this has been a big one recently. You think your bank is calling. They've been spoofing a lot of bank phone numbers and text them. Don't click on links unless you're asking for something or requesting and you're expecting it. And a link should be fairly safe, but check it out first. And don't ever give remote access.
Somebody says, turn access of your computer over to us and we'll do all this for you. That's a huge red flag. You're dealing with a scammer.
Right. And when you think about what people keep on their computers, on their desktop, I mean, taxes sometimes, and, so it's a lot more than that. So don't ever give remote access to anyone, unless you're trying to get your computer fixed and you're the one going out there, going to a reputable place. So
I want to sort of underscore the thing that you said about the banks and the fact that the bank doesn't guarantee the validity of the transaction. I had somebody call me who had this scam happen to him, and he sent money via Zelle to somebody who thought he was going to be purchasing, I think, car parts, and it turned out the guy was a scammer on the other end. Okay. But he sent money via Zelle to this person, and he was shocked to learn that the bank doesn't guarantee that the transaction is valid, and they're not going to reimburse you for money that you send if the transaction turns out to be a fraud. He was of the opinion, and I'll bet a lot of people are, that because this happens through the bank and the bank has set this up with you, that they're somehow agreeing that whatever happens with this Zelle account is either legitimate, or if it's a fraud, they're going to give you your money back. And that's not true.
Well, and here's what happens. When you're physically doing the transaction, you're authorizing it.
Oh, okay. And that's where the difference is. I see.
And that's where the difference is. 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 And that's where the So now if the scammer remotes in and they've done the transaction, even though in a way you've authorized them to go in and do the Zelle, someone else is doing that transaction. We can't really validate who's on the other end except what is being put into Zelle.
Yeah.
So if a phone number is valid or an email is valid, it's going to go there. We don't know if that is, your child or the scammer or whoever. So it's going to go with whoever you're putting information into that Zelle. So, but the difference is if you're setting up the Zelle account, you're sending the transaction, you're basically authorizing it. It is a little bit of an issue because a lot of people are having a hard time understanding that because they feel like, well, I've been talked into a scam. If you're sending it, you've authorized it. It's just like a card. If I give you my card, Vicki, I'm telling you, go ahead and do a transaction on the card.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, the same situation.
I think it's really important to emphasize that because people are under the misunderstanding that the bank is somehow guaranteeing that these transactions are valid, and the bank doesn't have any way. They're offering a conduit, a way of doing P2P transactions. And they're just offering a service.
Exactly. And a good example is the puppy scam. You're going out looking for that site. And we can't protect you from going into a fraudulent site and sending money to that puppy person who's sending that puppy via Zelle. You're going out looking for that email site. You should be extra cautious of who you're dealing with. Do your due diligence.
Well, I want to thank you, first of all, for explaining the process to me, since I had never used it and wasn't quite clear how it worked. And also for telling us the dangers and what we need to watch out for if we do use it, and explaining to us that the bank can't guarantee the legitimacy of a transaction. If you've agreed to send money to somebody via Zelle, you've authorized that the money go to that person, and the bank can't do anything about that.
But set up your Zelle with people who you want to send money back and forth with. Not to people you don't know. So that's the safe way. Deal with who you know.
Good advice.
And they can be a wonderful convenience. I love these P2P apps. They're great, but you do just have to be very careful. As you said, it has to be somebody you know.
Yeah. No, or really checked out. Not somebody coming to you, telling you to send the Zelle money.
Right.
I think that's a big clue too.
Unless it's, Mom, would you send me some money?
Which we all know happens.
It does. Well, this was really very insightful, and we thank you so much for giving us these tips.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Doris.
Okay.
Thank you, Doris. Bye-bye now. Well, that was really interesting with Montecito Bank and Trust and Doris Roof. Great advice. Vicki, do you have any good news today?
I do, Patty, and it starts with a kind of a bad news story, but it ends up well. So this happened in India, and a woman lost her wallet and her debit card. And of course, the minute she realized it was lost, she did what sometimes we all do, which she looked up the consumer support number of her bank on the internet. So she probably Googled her bank and got what she thought was the consumer support phone number. What she got was a fake number in her search, and she called the crooks who had set up this fake site. And we've talked about this before. Be careful if you find a number via a Google search. So the crooks took down her details. They assured her that the card had been blocked, that no one was going to be able to use the card. And she even got a message about an hour later telling her that her card had been successfully blocked. Well, it turns out that they were crooks, and they just used the information about her card to drain her bank account. Thankfully, some very good police officers in India were able to track the crooks down through various computer devices that they had available to them, they were able to track them down, arrest them, prosecute them, and this woman is probably going to get some of her money back as restitution. So every
Wow.
once in a while, these crooks get caught and you get your money back.
Great news. I could so easily fall for that. In fact, I almost did fall for a similar scam extending my car rental one time, and they asked for American Express. And I said, well, I don't have American Express to extend the car rental. And it was a bogus number that I found online, and it wasn't them at all. So I barely got away without losing money on that one. But you have to be so very careful when you look up companies online.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah, great story. Glad they got caught, and nice to know that there's some great people in India, police officers helping us out here too.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vicki. Have a great week, and can't wait to hear what you will warn us about next week.
Okay, thanks, Patty.
But just before you go, would you give your fraud hotline number?
I will. Area code 805-568-2442. So that's 805-568-2442.
Thank you so much, Vicki. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.